struggling, making weird faces with the weights. And this bitch is like, ah, I'm so cute. And I'm thinking, I don't want to be in your background Instagram bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's no way to check. And if you don't
Right.
know if they're going to blur you out, and then even like if they don't
Or
comment
talk
on
about
you,
you like, look at the
you know
behind
some of
me.
the people who watch the video may still comment like, "Oh, you're cute," but who is that in the background?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Who's dying on that machine back there? Right.
Yeah.
Uh, oh man.
But there
All
is a
right.
trend of like, there's tons of people now who like make fun of these girls and actually get them kicked out of gyms
Well,
too.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
not just girls, it's guys too. Like both sides like can do awful things. The guys are really big at like filming in the bathroom. You think it would be like the girls who are all like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
look at me in the bathroom," but the girls like at least film like themselves doing poses in the open. But the guys, I think it's because you need to have a shirt on at most
Oh,
gyms.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But in the bathroom, they can take their shirt off. But then they're
Right,
like in the bathroom with people changing.
right. And
Creepy.
I don't get it because like this gym has a separate yoga room, a completely separate room. Like, why aren't you going in the yoga room? Nobody's in that fucking yoga room. Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's ever in that yoga room. So go in there. But no, that's not where the equipment is, where it looks gymmy, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe the gym aesthetic. Anyway, yeah, it's fucking irritating. I can't
Mhm.
stand it. I'm like actually trying to use the gym. So would you please fuck off? Anyway. Anyway, so I'm gonna jump into it. I don't know. I was waiting for Jasmine, but we're not gonna wait any much longer. So we'll just jump. Hey, share.
Hey.
All right. So I'm gonna share my screen if I can. Yeah.
Thank you.
There we go. All right. You guys, I'm really proud of myself because I'm not tech savvy, but I actually made like a PowerPoint presentation that looks like a PowerPoint presentation. Don't ask me how I did it. I just did it. And anybody who wants this, I can of course email it to you. But all right, so tonight I just wanted to kind of give a lot of information. So yeah, definitely there's so much information I can email it. But anyway, so underworld dreaming is also called ancestral dreaming or visitation dreaming. I don't like calling it ancestral dreaming because visitations happen sometimes from, friends, pets, your higher self, your past lives, aliens, whatever, like visitation can be a lot of different things, not just ancestors. So I stuck with underworld dreaming, but it's usually typically it's from deceased. Um, but they are very different. Like usually these dreams you can feel are very different. There's actually been studies, so I include a little bit of that here, just different studies at different foundations. Even CNN did a study on people that have believed they've had visits from loved ones that have been deceased in their dreams. And so you can see like all the countries here, like everybody but Canada is having these dreams. So everyone but I mean Canada's getting there, but they're slacking a little bit.
What is
So the underworld connection to dreams. So I did reference some books in here too for you guys that are readers and want to read more about it. But it is believed that dreaming is like kind of an entrance to the spirit world or like a portal realm. So sleeping, our dream world, it's part of our subconscious. It's so there's that divine aspect too. But our subconscious takes over, and it's funny because it used to be called the little death. And for you guys that don't know, the little death now is used to describe orgasm. So like if you go to like sex magic or whatever, or you read sex magic books, they always refer to it as the little death. But it used to be for sleep. So anyways, people used to sleep near graves of their, deceased loved ones. The Greeks would sleep in these places called necromatons. I'm not pronouncing it right. I'm going to butcher the Greek word. Sorry. But those were Greek temples for communicating with the dead because dreamscapes are liminal spaces. So how is it possible? So unlike the waking world, we're able to do pretty much anything in our dreams. We're pretty limitless. Dreams aren't bound by the laws of space and time. They allow us to travel kind of back and forth in time. You can kind of change locations in an instant in your dream as the observer or the observed. Um, Obviously, we can do things in our dreams like flying, walking on water, meeting magical creatures, all these things that we can't do in our waking life. So you can explore things in your dreams that you can't explore in your waking life. That includes communication because language barriers are gone. So, like, communicating with different entities, even like in your dreams where there would be typically a language barrier, those are removed. A lot of times people with visitation dreams, sometimes it's not like a verbal conversation, it's like a telepathic, like, your great grandma comes to see you and you just kind of know what she's saying to you in your dream. Um, so it's not our body traveling, obviously, it's an aspect of ourselves, which is our spirit. I sorry, I kind of broke some of this down to like very mundane levels because I thought a couple other people were joining us. So you guys have to sit through the mundane part of it. Common patterns of underworld dreaming. Obviously, these dreams are vivid and memorable. Um, the dreamer usually is the only one in the dream who knows it's a visit from their deceased. So, like, there's other people in the dream maybe doing things, but they're not aware. Usually, the background is kind of fuzzy, with the interaction with your visitor being the kind of spotlight of your dream. And the visitor may look different. So sometimes when our deceased come to visit us, they look younger. Like they don't look old like they did when they died, or if they died because they were sick, they don't look sick anymore. They look healthy, but their personality is always going to be the same. And you're just going to know that that's them. And sometimes, their trademark persona, like whether it's dressing or expression, is going to be there also. So a lot of times, the visitor is going to have a positive mindset or a positive message, but not always, which is why we'll talk about that later. Um, so the visitor is always going to interact with you in the same way, in some way. So even if they don't talk directly to you, they're communicating, like I said, either telepathically or there's some sort of communication taking place. Um, so once you wake up, a lot of times after these visitation dreams, you can still feel their presence, or there may be other telltale signs in your environment. So like you might smell their perfume or smell their cigar smoke. Like there's usually something lingering that comes through that liminal space. Animals do communicate sometimes by leading you somewhere in your dream. They could be showing you things, and interacting with you the same way they did when they were alive. So keep that in mind. So ways to manifest these dreams. So people are, in these test studies and trials, like actively trying to develop this skill. So I do encourage people to cast like a protection ward of some sort before doing dream magic, and I will explain how to do that later. Um, it's something you can do very quickly right before you go to bed, and then you can take the wards down in the morning when you wake up. But if you're new to this and you haven't done this before, you don't want to just be like opening the door and being like, whoever wants to come in, because that can be scary. Not all, I mean, we all have deceased relatives and ancestors that maybe weren't great people. You don't necessarily want to visit from them. So, um, when you are actively doing this, you need to have a clear purpose and state that purpose. You want to put it out to the universe and invite that loved one into your dream state. Ancestor altars, these can be as simple or as dramatic as you want. It could be photographs. Ancestors aren't always just biological. So I do talk a lot about epigenetics. So epigenetics is DNA inherited trauma from our lineage, right? So we all have this. And so we don't, here's the trouble with epigenetics is that we usually only have a glimmer. Like in my family, like that shit's obvious, but I can't even imagine how much worse it was 100 years ago, maybe. Like maybe it was 100 times worse than what it is now, or maybe it was better. I don't know. But the point is, I don't want to play Russian roulette. So having an ancestor altar is a good way to make offerings to your ancestors that to keep any of that kind of traumatic based like DNA residual stuff out of your dreams, like out of your dream work. And it can also help you heal any lineage wounds. So for future generations, like your children, your grandchildren. Dream altars. And I took a little video of my headboard because that's my dream altar because I don't have any more space for any more altars. But setting up a dream altar, again, it can be very simple or it can be very dramatic, whatever you want. Somewhere near where you're sleeping, I wouldn't necessarily use incense or candles. I mean, you can, but that gets a little risky. You don't want to be waking up to, a three-alarm fire. So, um, herbs, crystals, oils, these are all things that work well that aren't going to cause issues while you're sleeping. Writing down your intentions. Dream dolls or poppets can be used for that. So I even use a St. Joe. So I brought that to show you guys. So here, I guess I can just. So like I have like this St. Joe thing. I got it on Amazon. St. Joe's for dreams. You open it up. You can put your petitions right inside before you go to bed. Keep it right in your headboard or next to your bed. It's just a nice little place for me to also kind of look back and see what it is that I'm oh shit. What did I do to you guys? Hang on. Um See, I'm not as good at this as I think I am sometimes. All right, hang on. Damn it. You just when I think I'm good at okay, here we go. There we go. So yeah, anything to see, look at this. Thank God it's just you guys. All right. Um Anything to kind of like maybe store and record. I also keep a little digital, I got this for like 20 bucks on Amazon, recorder so that when I wake up, I can just record my dream right away, just a voice recording. So I'm not scrambling to try to remember stuff while I'm writing because my brain works faster than my hand. All right, ways to manifest again using lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming, you can use mind machines like a Luma 10 or a Casina. You can have a dream journal to help you understand patterns. If you have artifacts from your deceased loved ones, like a piece of jewelry, a piece of clothing, or even if you don't have anything personal, their photo, or maybe even like making a favorite food or something that you can put on the altar. Using triggers like mantras or very specific charms, kind of like connected to certain people helps in dream magic. And then, of course, working with dream allies. All right, so dream allies. So these are the deities. They're the deities and psychopomps that control liminal space. So I kind of wrote down for you guys from the different like religious or spiritual backgrounds, kind of who's in charge of what. Like an Egyptian, it's Anubis, Osiris, and Isis that controls dream liminal space. In Norse beliefs or neo-pagan beliefs, it's Freya and Hel. So, I mean, this is kind of like a list of the different deities attached to dream work. If you already work with them or you wanted to work with them, these would be the ones you would want to work with. There's also animals and creatures. We talk about animus. So bees, bees are notorious for traveling between realms. Cats, of course, deer. And then it just kind of breaks down dogs, dolphins, foxes. Not a lot of people have pet dolphins. Not a lot of people have pet pigeons, but horses, owls, snakes. I know a lot of people who do dream work that do have pet snakes. Um, and snakes are actually probably one of the most powerful like dream work animals if you were going to have a pet. Cats also obviously. Mythological creatures, angels are on here. Obviously, they're not mythological, but you know what I mean. Different belief structures have these different like mythological connections. I put the Grim Reaper on there. Any death figure in any religion is going to be a source for dream work. So I do have this list here for you guys. On other dream allies. Dream allies, when we're talking about herbs, oils, and crystals. So I kind of broke down what works best for dream work. So African dream root, blue lotus flower, frankincense, myrrh, mugwort, and patchouli. So my big one is mugwort. I think mugwort is wonderful for a lot of different things, but especially with lucid dreaming and dream recall. So I always keep mugwort on my dream altar. You can also make a mugwort tea before you go to sleep. Or I used to, when the kids were little, I used to make them, I called them lullaby muffins. It was mugwort, chamomile, and blueberry muffins to knock them out so they would sleep and also so they would have sweet dreams. So, all right. So there's that. Boy, I'm choking on spit. Um, Crystals, angel aura quartz, probably one of my favorites. Clear quartz, because you can program those for dream work specifically. Angel aura quartz, just kind of going back to that one. That's great for lucid dreaming, vivid dreams, and if you're trying to access other realms in your dreams. Labradorite's great, Moldavite, selenite, white howlite. These are all great. But my favorite probably would be angel aura quartz. I do have that on my dream altar. I'll show that to you guys. I just think it's really great for dream work. But any of these, everybody has their own calling when it comes to crystals. But additional tips, again, we talked about the dream journal. So underworld dreaming sometimes is best during a waning or dark moon. Dark moons are new moons, or during liminal periods. So like Samhain, Halloween time. So these periods are really good just because the planetary influence is kind of right, and things are just lined up a little bit better. It makes things a little bit easier and more accessible. So if you're not having success, like you're trying to have a visitation dream with a deceased loved one, always, this takes time and practice. If it's a recent death, you don't really want to be reaching out. You want to wait till they've been gone at least 40 plus days. There's that transition period. You just got to be patient. Sometimes we have other blockages that block our ability to access liminal space, and sometimes it's daily life. It's stress like money, bills, relationship issues. So those things all play a part. Sometimes we have our own subconscious fears or our own trauma or shadows that create physical blocks. Yeah, again, sometimes you got to be careful too, because I think marijuana is fine. Alcohol, probably not a great idea if you're going to do visitation dreaming. Other drugs, it depends on the drug. Acid's probably fine. Mushrooms are probably fine. You stay away from the cocaine, crack, meth. I don't know. Don't be messing it up before you're going to visit ancestors. It's probably not a good idea. So, but be
Dang,
patient.
Mish, that's messed up.
I know, man. Yeah, I mean, being patient, having fun, all of us as a collective are unlearning years of societal stuff. What's right, what's wrong, what's real, what's not. So undertaking this work is very challenging because of the belief structures we all grew up with. So you got to be patient with that. The other part of our dream work going forward, typically for these groups, we do the dream tending, which is sharing the dream, and then we're going to do the art, which is going to be painting or drawing the dream. But we're going to be incorporating a lot of this. Like, I'm going to be asking each month, did you do a visitation dream? Let's talk about things like that. Are you doing snake healing? Snake healing is the other thing that I really wanted to, share with you guys, because I think it's so beneficial. So this dates back to 330 BCE. And I'm going to butcher and murder these names, but Asclepius was the Greek god of medicine, healing, and psychotherapy. He had a group of therapists that were called priests back then, who were considered living psychopomps, which is a big deal because they guide souls. These priests guided living souls at that time, helping them navigate, liminal spaces. And they kind of were space holders for people as they did these visitation dreams, so that they could balance out whatever they were dealing with. It was very unique. I'm going to go into it a little bit just because I think it's such a unique practice and it was so popular. So anyways, part of their intake process was doing a genogram, which I think we should be doing now, but we don't. So this is a psychiatric family tree. So when people had problems sleeping back then, or thought they were possessed by the devil or whatever, so Asclepius would do a genogram. He would look at the psychiatric background of that family, and he would link that to any world events that that family had experienced. So he was looking at patterns of addiction, spiritual beliefs, all these different things. And I think that's why he was so successful with healing people, is because he was incorporating genograms in his work. Anyway, so these dream facilities had sleeping pits that were filled with snakes, hence why it's called snake healing. Because he used what were called alchemical psychology energies. So a lot of times when you hear people talk about, like, I don't know, like witchcraft or paganism, you'll hear them refer to so above, so below, so in me. So he also used that. So above being the stars, So there was no roofs, there was no, ceilings. So below were the snakes, and then so in me was the blood and earth. And that's how he treated people in these sleeping pits. So he had over 300 healing centers that were sacred spaces. The floors were all geometric, circular, and they were called abatans. Abatans were where dream healing actually occurred. And patients slept in an incubation state called temple sleep and traveled to the underworld. So nowadays we call that astral travel. But back then it was called incubation sleep. So anyway, just a little background because it's part of like doing dream work. So very ritualized. These rituals took place pre-sleep, pre-incubation sleep. So it included offerings. So they would do oral dedications to a goddess called Hygeia, ritual baths. It was believed that water has to come first before you could go into this state. And a lot of times outside of the bath, the water came in the form of tears. So the tears came during the last stage of that prep process, which was discussions with the sleep temple priests, which were like the therapists. So the sacred sleep experience is similar to a death experience. So these priests would help the patient also identify the key in the sacred dream, which is why we do dream tending. So when we share our dreams every month, we're kind of letting each other project on our dreams so we can help you find and locate and identify the key, right? Because once you have the key, like that opens doors for you in terms of what your subconscious is doing and what other aspects of self are doing. So lastly, the patient would then sacrifice a rooster to a sleepiest as gratitude and thanks. Nobody needs to sacrifice any roosters in this group. We're not going to be doing that. I'm sorry. But that was a big thing back then. So moving on to the next slide. So what does the snake fully represent? Because it's a horrifying thought that you're in this deep trance sleep that these priests put you in, and then you're sleeping in these like geometric circular things, and now snakes are all over you, right? So it's horrifying to think about. So snakes represent what needs to be let go of. So snakes have always and I think part of it is like they shed their skin so their new skin has room. So they represent duality. So those of you that are into astrology, Chiron is the wounded healer. And we know that wounds bring wisdom, right? But we have to first embrace our wounds. And snakes represent that duality, and they always have since ancient Greece. So there was this one statement I really loved, and that's whitewashing the dark is not the same as transmuting it to light. And what that means is the reason he scared and horrified these people with snakes is because he had to make it real. Because a lot of times we don't. We are very superficial. We're superficial. We're like, oh yeah, yeah, I get it. Oh yeah, I'm here. I feel it now. I'm fine. But sometimes there's that superficiality involved. Like we're just saying what needs to be said to get through the motions. And he didn't want his patients whitewashing their shadow selves. He wanted to make sure that they were transmuting. And so part of that was shock, the shock and awe of doing something like that. And it worked, it worked. So we talked about dream journals. I also suggest people create their own dream dictionary using your symbols and imagery because those are different for all of us. Because I have clients that come to me and they want me to analyze their dreams. And sure, I have reference points, but an orange bookshelf in my dream means something very different than an orange bookshelf in your dream. So it's hard for me to sometimes understand fully what the symbols and imagery are representing without me just doing it in a textbook way. So I always tell people, make your own dream dictionary. What does this symbolize to you? What does this image mean to you? Make a dictionary, track your dreams, and look for patterns so that you understand. Because, I mean, sure, you can Google it, and Google will give you 10 or 12 different answers for what that image means in your dream, but maybe none of them are right. So it's important that, you kind of embrace that as your own thing. Cast wards before sleeping, very simple. We were talked about that earlier. Salt under the bed. Okay, so here's the thing with blessed salt. You don't need to jump online and buy blessed salt from a witch. You can go to the grocery store and buy kosher salt. Anything that's kosher has been blessed by a rabbi. So, I mean, go get some kosher salt, put it under the bed. Know your epigenetics as best as you can. This is your inherited trauma via DNA What's your family psychology look like? Because here's the thing, um, bloodlines carry things like depression and anxiety and sociopathy and all these things that if you're not aware of them, when you're doing underworld dreaming, there's a lot of shadow energy there because your subconscious is involved and you're opening doors, and you better know what you're opening doors to. So the more aware and knowledgeable you are, the more control you have. If you're jumping into things and you have, 5 generations of alcoholics and 2 generations of, male pedophiles, and you have, all this stuff, and you're just jumping in and opening doors, you're not probably going to like some of the stuff that's going to come through them. So know what your epigenetics are and use that when you're casting your wards. Maintain a dream altar. Okay, so one thing with dream altars, I'm going to show you real quick. Hang on, let me put this down. So look, I want to show you, it doesn't have to be huge. So like it can be a very small thing. God damn it, I was trying to close this off. Hang on. All right, escape. Right. I want to escape from, listen, end show. Thank you. I'm going to go back to it in a minute, but I wanted to show you. So, like, you can use your headboard. So, this is literally my headboard. So, like, you don't have to have a separate table. You don't have to have, like, all this fancy shit that the internet witches are going to tell you, right? You can have a headboard with very specific things that represent specific ancestors. Look, I use sex magic too. Don't, some of this stuff is other stuff. There's my angel cords, but here's, you can make it whatever you want. It doesn't have to be like big and fancy. Put it right in your headboard. If you start going down these rabbit holes on Google, they're going to tell you you got to do this, this, and this. No, just do something simple and something close to you so that you have it. So there's like my St. Joe. I'll explain the thread in a minute, but like all my, like, I actually track what I like ask for in my dreams too. So like that's why I like the St. Joe bowl. But anyway, so that's just like an example. Like of what one could look like. And then triggers. I'll go back in a minute. I think everybody should have triggers, like because it trains you and whatever spirits you're working with. So I have silver and gold thread that I got on Amazon, really, really cheap. It's metallic thread, right? So if I'm gonna have a dream where I want to talk to my one of my friends or like a relative that's died, I'll use the silver ribbon. The thread, I'll cut off a piece of thread and put it in my St. Joe bowl as a trigger before I go to bed. If I want to hopefully get a message from like maybe a deity, like, Kali Ma or somebody I'm working with on a case or something, I'll use the gold thread because they're not really human. So, so I'll use the gold thread and I'll cut that off as a trigger and I'll put it in my St. Joe. So I think everybody should have their own triggers, depending on, what you're doing, who you want to talk to, why you want to talk to them. And that kind of like sets the stage like before you go to bed. So like I just think triggers are really amazing. And then the other thing, man, there's a lot of pages here. All right. Okay, the dream tea we talked about. I love mugwort, using tarot as a doorway. A lot of times, people that do dream magic will pull a random tarot card before bed and use that as their tarot scape for the night. They'll put it on their dream altar. Um, Making dream poppets, those are like dream pillows. Anybody from the 80s, 90s knows what a dream pillow is, right? You can make those pretty easily. Or you can just make a sachet and put it in your pillowcase. I actually make pillowcases with sigils on them, and you could do that yourself. You could make your own pillowcases. Using dream grids. If you're going to do a dream grid, definitely reflect back on that crystal list. Use those crystals. You can do any kind of symbolic grid, like using any of the Solomon seals, really. Or the third pentacle of Venus is a good one to use too, because that's a very loving, kind of attractant. And it also is very respectful. It has a lot of admiration qualities. So that's going to keep things pretty upbeat. And then ritual baths, again, that list I had in here, which I can pull that back up. Um, Whoops. Yeah, so herbs and oils. If you're going to do ritual baths, blue lotus flower, I love. Mugwort, put that in the bath. I use mugwort for, I'm just going to tell you, I use mugwort for fucking everything. I don't know what I don't use mugwort for. Like seriously, I just love mugwort. But blue lotus flower is great for a bath. African dream root, I would probably just keep that on an altar. I wouldn't use that in a bath. The crystal grids, clear quartz, again, you can program that for anything you want. So those are going to be great. Angel aura quartz, those are good. You might even want to throw in, I didn't put it on the list, but some obsidian. Maybe put some obsidian in your grid because that's also kind of a warding, shielding agent. So I would probably include that too. But that was my presentation on how we're going forward with dream work and how we're incorporating those things in our dream tending and then our spiritual art aspect. So with the spiritual art aspect, I want to do the groups the same. Like I want us to share our dreams, project on each other's dreams, and then I really fell in love with the idea of pulling images that spoke to us and like drawing them, painting them, and then exploring that in our groups. So there's a very short video clip. It's like only 5 or so minutes long, just kind of showing how that works that I'm going to show you guys again, just because I thought it was such a worthwhile thing. Sherry, I don't think you've seen it. You're going to love it. Like, I just think it's so like, um, you know what? Why does this not go away? Why does it not go away? All right, hang on. Let's see. I wonder what they're doing up there because seriously, how many people live up there that 5 or 6 or 7 chairs have to keep getting pushed in and out on the floor? In and out on the floor. Like, seriously, come on, people. All right, where did I put it? No, that's not it. Oh, I think I put it. Did I put it in here? No. Okay, so you guys all know Carl Jung, right? He's like one of the godfathers of whatchamacallit, psychotherapy. Is this the one that we looked at? Hang on. Let me make sure because I get confused. Let me make, yes, this is it. I love this video. Okay, so it's a quick video. So like I said, what we're going to do is we're going to be doing our normal dream tending, sharing, projecting, and then we're going to do this art thing every month, which I love. Okay, so let's just watch the video. Sorry. Oh, wait, hang on. Can you guys even hear it or no?
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's why I am an idiot. I need to include sound. Listen, you guys, I don't get it. Now I do. Here we go. Now you should be able to hear it.
Exploring your dreams.
Do you hear her?
You are
Yeah.
giving yourself the possibility to have a direct
love this girl, by
experience
the
and
way.
a
I just
direct
love her.
access to the wisdom of your unconscious. I'm Yasmin, and I've helped over 300 people work with their dreams through arts-based techniques rooted in Jungian psychology. And today I'm going to show
How about
you
Carl
a
Jung?
personal example of mine working with my own dream on how I use painting to explore dreams, specifically the different